Games are pretty great when you can sit down and enjoy them with your hopefully existent friends, and 2023 has been quite the banger for co-op games thus far, so let's sit down and examine all of the best ones under a microscope. And while we're at it, I guess I'll go ahead and rank them all the way down to number 1, which happens to be my favorite so far this year. But before we do that, I want to do some honorable mentions for games that are coming out very soon that do look incredible. The end of this year has got a few of them, so let's have a look. Mythforce has got an art style inspired by Saturday morning cartoons and is a first-person roguelite game that features swords and sorcery that you'll use to overcome an ever-shifting evil castle. It features 4 heroes and, yep, you guessed it, it's also playable by 4 online. It'll be out on the 12th on pretty much everything, and I'm looking forward to it. The original Deceit game cost me a lot of friendships, and I'm sure Deceit 2 on the 14th will probably take a few more of them. And of course, we've got Payday 3 also at the end of this month, on the 21st. Coming in at 16th is Blanc. It's an inky black and white adventure about 2 unlikely traveling companions, a wolf cub and a fawn. After a blinding snowstorm rolled in and separated the newfound friends from their families, they put aside their places on the food chain to work together on a mission to follow the tracks left behind. As you'd expect from this kind of game, there's totally a happy ending in there, I'm sure. It's an emotional journey with incredible art that does not feature any intense gaming moves. The only real downside to this one is its relatively short runtime. I'd also recommend playing it on a controller, as in my opinion it's a bit smoother. Wildhearts is a game that was lost in the massive shuffle of this year, and whilst the game is really hit or miss in terms of reviews, I do think they added quite a lot of fun elements to the typical monster hunting style. They looked at Fortnite and thought, hell yeah, let's add some building to this shit. You'll be using some interesting ancient technology to take on hunts against rampaging kimono, huge ferocious forces of nature that once trampled the lands. It's quite fun, however, I stress this is absolutely one to pick up on sale, as the price tag and its shaky PC performance makes it a bit of a gamble. Now, I love asymmetrical horror games, so it's not really a surprise to see the Texas Chainsaw Massacre on this list at the number 14 position. It features the family, a bunch of hillbilly cannibal crackheads locking down their various locales across their real estate portfolio to attempt to butcher their victims in a 3 versus 4 battle. It features some pretty intense gameplay as a victim that'll see you locked in the basement with Leatherface, and if you're lucky enough to survive that, you'll have to plot an escape whilst avoiding the other 2 murderous fiends and their shrieking echolocating geriatric device that is their grandpa. In my opinion, there may or may not be some balancing issues as the game's lifespan has gotten a bit longer, but it's definitely worth playing on the Game Pass. If you're a fan of complete chaos, destruction, and throwing other people's furniture through the window, then Moving Out 2 will bring you plenty of joy. It's a wacky physics-based moving simulator where you play as a fart, aka a furniture arrangement and relocation technician. You're tasked with, well, you guessed it, moving other people's belongings out of their home and into a truck. I love this game, and it's probably because it lets me take out my frustrations at the real estate industry. The previous game is also incredibly fun and slightly cheaper. The main difference between the two is that the second game offers online play, whereas the first game is limited to local only. On to one of those sneaky gems of this year, it's Voidigo, the incredibly vibrant balls-to-the-wall action roguelike with a cool genre twist that I appreciate. This game has a zany energy to it, and that's really captured in just about every aspect, from the enemies to the bopping, bouncing, quick-paced combat. As you'd expect from any roguelite in this day and age, it has a wide range of weapons that'll genuinely surprise you. The easiest way to describe it is enter the gungeon, lost its damn mind, but in the best way possible. One of the coolest features is how the bosses work. Rather than being confined to a room, they will roam the various dungeons, forcing you to hunt them. It gives way to boss hunting and the ability to chase it down or retreat to regather yourself, at least until the boss comes back for round 2. It spoke to me here. Now, I love leaving my friends to their deaths at the hands of ghostly apparitions in rundown, ramshackled houses, and Demonologist lets me do exactly that. Borrowing heavily upon the newly invested interests in the ghost hunting genre that Phasmophobia instilled, Demonologist plays out much the same. Grab the equipment, head inside, locate the clues, and work out what the entity is before you all get choked the hell out. It does, however, give you the option to exorcise the cursed entity if you so choose at your own risk. It's made in Unreal Engine 5, so it looks great, features voice interactivity, and a good suite of spooks that are to be had. I got my ass kicked actually trying to exorcise the demon, so it was quite a fun time. Alright, now we're on to the top 10, and at 10th is Patchquest. Now at first you might look at this game and think it's not much, but you'd be wrong. It's a genre-defying whirlwind of roguelites, monster tamers, and Metroidvanias that may look cute at first, but is actually a deceptively tricky bullet hell game. If you love The Binding of Isaac, you might feel somewhat at home, but like I mentioned, this game is full of twists, as the player will have a lasso that will let you tame any monster you encounter, and they'll help you navigate the treacherous patchwork maze by lending you their abilities. It features 2-player local co-op and is one of those sneaky little indie gems of the year. Whoever had the idea of taking games like Jump King and saying, you know what would make this better? By making it co-op and also tying the 2 players together. Bread and Fred is just that. You play as 2 adorable penguin climbers that have an absolutely insatiable need to get to the top of a mountain. It's a rage-inducing climbing platformer that'll require a lot of timing and communication with your player too, unless you want to faceplant your way on a reverse speedrun back down the mountain. Whilst this does sound like a complete relationship destroyer, luckily for you, they were nice enough to include checkpoints you can enable, unlike other games in this genre. If you want something a bit slower and more gritty, Wartales is an open-world RPG that sees you at the head of a group of mercenaries in search of wealth as they stumble across the lands. After a vicious plague crippled the nation, there's a lot of work in the merc profession if you don't mind contending with cutthroats, thieves, and rivals, that is. If you enjoy writing your own narrative, it's excellent for that. You can choose to protect the townsfolk from petty thieves or rob them blind. You are not a hero in this tale, because heroes are forgotten in this world that has now found itself entirely without honor. It's a medieval strategy RPG with turn-based elements and 4-player co-op that will probably leave you with 3 fewer friends. Now look, good co-op games are pretty hard to find, and even if the Outlast Trials goes for a complete horror circus of nonsensical gore galore in favor of a campaign, it is still absolutely awesome. You'll play as a sorry soul that's been dragged into the murk off corporations' attempts at ascending humanity. Their hypothesis is that subjecting you to their trials, which are full of life and death horror, will somehow do this. You'll be running for your life 1 minute and then being graded on your performance by a teacher-like figure behind glass on the next. So if being scared shitless and also getting a C- for your effort is your thing, it's perfect because C's get degrees, baby, or in this case, they survive. Casette Beasts, in my opinion, is one of this year's standout indie games, and of course, it wouldn't be on this list if it didn't have co-op, which makes it even better. It's a game that combines monster collectors with retro technology in a turn-based format with an excellent elemental weakness mechanic and also a wild combination system which makes the already large monster pool even larger. If you're a fan of Pokemon, it will check all the boxes, and it features 2-player local co-op and 8-player online drop-in, drop-out co-op. When it comes to co-op roguelites this year, Ember Knights takes the cake and eats it too. If you've ever just wanted Hades as a co-op game, this isn't quite it, but it's close and it'll definitely scratch the itch. You'll play as an Ember Knight, the last spark of hope against a mad sorcerer and his unending hordes, in which you'll have to wield various weapons and create synergies with your friends to absolutely obliterate everything. It's fun, fast, and fluid, and is a really well-made co-op roguelite with a good chunk of replayability through its skills and weapon mod system. It's playable by 4 online and locally, and may just give you one of the best roguelite experiences that you can have with friends. Now, if you told me Starship Troopers was gonna fly out of 1997 and hit us with a bloody great game, I would have asked to buy your crystal ball. By God, they made an older movie into a game and it's actually good. It's called Starship Troopers Extermination, and it's a 16-player co-op FPS game with base building and base defense elements. If you like shooting massive alien bugs, it's also got a whole lot of that in there. You're a part of an elite space vanguard sent to reclaim an overrun colony. Apparently, that means building temporary fortifications and then bailing out a dropship when they get overrun. It's still in early access, but I look forward to seeing what they add to it, and it is quite a lot of fun at the moment if there are enough players for it. Now, when Sons of the Forest came out, I did not love it. I thought it was half-baked and a bit worse than the original. However, I said let it cook for 6 months, and cook it did. Whilst it is more of the original game, down to the crash landing on the island and all, it's an excellent survival horror game with a lot to enjoy if you want to go on a not-so-relaxing camping experience with your friends. and Kevin, your mute pal and fellow helicopter crash survivor. It has thoroughly enjoyable base building along with eerie exploration, courtesy of the regretful experiments that are mutant cannibals, which now roam the island in droves. They also took Eat the Rich perhaps a little bit too literally, as you'll be trying to track down a missing billionaire on an island as your holiday side gig. When it comes to pushing the envelopes for games this year, Baldur's Gate 3 is a clear standout with its immense quality and scale. So you're probably asking, why the hell is it second? Well, there's preference, in that thing. It will probably be this year's game, and nobody in their right mind would be mad about that. It's an expansive party-based RPG set in the universe of Dungeons & Dragons, which pretty much slammed D&D and all of its chaos into a video game, which is all a complete side story to trying to bang orcs, demons, and elves, let's be honest. It is huge, and if you're a fantasy RPG nerd, you could probably just buy this game with your friends and enjoy it for the rest of time, with 2 players locally or 4 players online. And down to number 1, the co-op game that I just happen to enjoy more than any others this year, it's good old Remnant 2. This one's a Souls-styled shooter with a procedurally generated tile set that will see you venturing through 5 unique worlds that will always be different no matter the playthrough. This includes different bosses, items, and stories to uncover through the adventures. This game houses so many secrets and unique events, it's really a game that needs to be replayed several times to get the full experience. Its combat is tight, the bosses are fun, and the little interwoven stories are really enjoyable. You can jam it solo, but it really stands out when it's played with 3 players, and it's my favorite thus far this year, so I definitely recommend it. I am really looking forward to remaking this list in a couple months and seeing what else is coming out at the end of this year. It's been a blast, 2023 has. Honestly, bring on the last couple months, and thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed, maybe leave a little like on the video, and maybe you know what? You're a big person, you can work out what to do. Thanks for watching, see you again soon.